Arabian Folktale. There was once a small lute which stood in the hall of a beautiful house. The owners of the house had been poor, but when an uncle died, leaving the lute to them, their fortunes rose. A sly fellow named Feraj guessed that the lute was the reason for the family's sudden wealth. Stealing the lute and carrying it into the desert, he tapped it and thumped it and pummeled it, finding nothing unusual about it. Exhausted from his wicked deed, he lay down to sleep, the lute on the ground beside him. The night wind sighed through the strings of the lute, crooning secrets of great wealth to be found and rich rewards. Hearing none of this, Feraj slept. For many days, Feraj kept the lute, examining it and puzzling over it during the day, and sleeping beside it at night while it sang out its stories. At length, he tired of the matter. Meeting a witless young man on a dusty road, he traded the lute to him for the cottage in which the young man and his mother lived. "It will surely make you rich," he told the young man, "for it has wondrous powers. I only trade it for reasons of health, that I may live in your simple cottage and regain my strength." With that, he made such a poor face that the young man felt sorry for him and declared it a bargain. "Dunce!" cried the young man's mother when she learned what her son had done. "If the lute is magic, why then didn't it give the fellow a cottage?" Having no answer for that, the luckless young man wailed pitifully. At dawn of the following day, Feraj came to take possession of the cottage, driving the young man and his mother out. In her cloak, the mother carried cold mutton and bread, while the young man dragged the lute sadly behind him. They had to go into the desert to live. There was no help for it. The young man howled, the mother wailed, and the day passed. That night, awakening from the chill of the desert air, the young man heard a strange sound. Thinking his ears were playing tricks on him, he turned over and drew his cloak close about his head. The sound came again. Sitting up, the young man listened, and soon he discovered it was the lute that was making the noise. "A bag of gold," it seemed to be repeating again and again, and "there in the sand by your foot." The young man rose quietly, thinking not to disturb his mother, and began to dig in the sand. At length, his hands touched something solid, and he soon unearthed a bag of gleaming gold. The young man shook his mother rudely to waken her, and showed her what he had found. Then the greedy old woman jiggled and joggled the lute, scolding it all the while, thinking to get even more gold. But since dawn had come, the lute was silent. "It was not the lute that told you, stupid fellow," cried the mother, "but some kind of dream." She tied the gold into the corner of her cloak. Then she and her son started for the city, planning what the money would buy. In the city, they purchased fruit from a peddler's cart, gaped at the sights, and outfitted themselves in fine clothes and sandals of decorated leather. Never had they looked so grand. As they strolled along the street, they were mistaken by the king's vizier for persons of noble position. "May I be of service to you?" asked the vizier. "We have recently left our home and are in need of a situation," the old woman told him. Upon hearing this, the vizier prevailed upon them to travel to the region they had so recently left, and there to reside in a magnificent house as overseers of the king's lands. This they did gladly. 30 servants were theirs, and 40 rooms. And whom should they find employed at cleaning pots in the cooking chamber but Feraj? He had fallen asleep, leaving the cottage fire untended, and the home he had taken from them had burned to the ground. Happy in the good fortune that had befallen them, The young man and his mother forgave Feraj completely for deceiving them about the lute. They even returned the lute to his hands, for the mother was convinced it was useless. The rest of Feraj's long life was spent in service in the cooking chamber. Often he played fine airs upon the lute for the enjoyment of his fellow workers. But because he labored so hard during the daytime, he slept soundly all night, never hearing the night breezes in the lute strings, never learning the secret of the lute.